Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Diarrhea has been defined by the World Health Organization as the passing of 3 or more loose or liquid stools per day. It is also a more frequent passage of loose stools than is normal for the individual. Diarrhea, however, is a symptom of an underlying problem. Severe diarrhea leads to fluid loss and may be life-threatening, especially in young children and people who are malnourished or have compromised immunity. According to the Apex Health Body, diarrheal disease is the second major cause of death in children below the age of 5, and each year 760,000 children die of it. It is also a leading cause of malnutrition in children under the age of 5. There are almost 1.7 billion cases of diarrhea every year. On the show with me is Dr. Efumbo Dosekun. She is a consultant pediatrician and CEO of Outreach Women and Children's Hospital in Lagos. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, most people know already that infection causes diarrhea, at least most. But infection from what? From where?
Okay. Like you mentioned earlier, it is very sad in developing countries that diarrhea is a real killer, because this is a condition that can be prevented, and if it does occur, in most cases can be treated. Now, you said diarrhea, where did it come from? Most of the time, majority of the time, it's bugs, bad bugs that give you diarrhea. And you get these bugs from contamination of your food or your water, or direct hand-to-hand contamination by people who are not clean, who don't have good personal hygiene practices.
So shaking hands can do it. You shake hands and you go eat.
Yes. If somebody used the toilet, didn't wash their hands properly, they shake the hands of another person, particularly children, and have contact with them, they can pass, or they can prepare food. Water dissolves all the bugs under their nails within their hands, and it goes direct in your food, and you take it into your mouth.
But is it possible to have diarrhea without an infection?
Yes, it is possible. Diarrhea can be a manifestation of an illness. It can be a manifestation of your gut not being, good in absorbing. It can be a manifestation of drugs you're taking. In elderly people, it could actually be a case of they being constipated. The stool is all jam-packed in their bowel. Then after some time, some bacteria, the normal bacteria that lives in your bowels, loosens it up, and you now have watery stool. So you alternate between constipation and diarrhea. Even cancer. We have a big problem now with bowel cancer among our 50 plus. And it can present as a diarrheal illness.
So it could be just about anything. Could it be stress?
Yes, stress can also make your gut move too fast, because there's a link between the brain and your gut. So
now the operative word seems to be loose stools.
Yes.
But babies have loose stools. Is there a problem with that?
Yes, particularly babies who take breast milk, their stools seem to be a bit more loose than the babies who are on artificial milk. And it's just that these babies have more, their gut moves a bit faster, and the absorption of water, because what happens is that when you're taking food, water is absorbed within your small intestine, and then it goes into your large intestine and goes out slowly. But sometimes if the gut is moving extra fast, the stools are loose, but it's not diarrhea.
But it's not diarrhea. So when does one know when a baby has diarrhea?
When you know a baby has diarrhea is if you start having a lot of seepage outside the nappy, then you start getting very worried. But if it's soft and frequent, it is all right.
Okay. Now, I mentioned, before we started talking, that according to statistics,
yes,
diarrhea is can cause malnutrition, or malnutrition can cause diarrhea.
Yes.
Which way does it go? What's the connection?
It's actually just, the two are linked together. When you live in an area where there's poor sanitation, contamination of food and water, poor food storage, poor food hygiene, poor personal hygiene. It is very easy for our children who are vulnerable with weaker immune system, and they run around, they just touch anything, they don't they have less boundaries. They tend to have diarrhea frequently. When you have diarrhea, particularly if it's significant, you don't feel well, so you don't eat well.
Oh, it affects the appetite.
It affects the appetite. It can also damage the lining of the intestines, so the absorption can be affected because the enzymes that you use to absorb the food that helps to digest your food is not working well. So the stool just gathers the food residue gathers in your gut and just passes out without being absorbed. So what you now have is a malnourished child. A malnourished child is not interested in eating. So what happens? Their immune system further goes down, and then they are still in that same high-risk environment, and they develop another diarrheal bug. So there's a cycle, and that's why there's such a high level of malnutrition within our environment.
Okay, a lot of people, especially adults, I know this, when they have diarrhea, they feel, okay, this is normal. We have this once in a while. Let me just wait it out. I'll be fine. But how much waiting is too much?
I don't think you should wait out at all. As soon as you've identified you're having the runs, you feel that you're having to rush extra, the stool is now loose, it may be offensive, you might be having cramps, you might be having a feeling that even after passing stool, you still feel, I still want to go back again. You now take it as serious business. Diarrhea must be taken as serious business. We've lost many lives, even among adults, because they have not taken it seriously and they have not replaced the fluid that is lost. The fluid that is lost has to be replaced faster than it's getting out of your body. Otherwise, you become dehydrated, and this can lead to shock and death.
So at the end of the day, it's not the underlying cause of the diarrhea that kills the person, but the diarrhea itself.
It's the diarrhea itself is a symptom. It's the loss of fluid. It's dehydration. When you're dehydrated, your body is made up mainly, particularly in children, is made up mainly of water. But in adults too, you have a significant amount of your body that has water. So if it all disappears through diarrhea, there's nothing to allow your circulation to go on. So you have shock and you die. I have had friends who have had diarrhea, and before the morning, in the middle of the night, and they said, oh, don't worry, tomorrow morning we would go. And they have died before the morning because it was explosive diarrhea, particularly the type of diarrhea that we call secretory gastroenteritis. So apart from the fact that this stool is moving out fast, it's actually secreting.
Secreting what?
Water is actually moving from inside the body. If your gut is inflamed, so you cannot absorb water, so whatever you drink seems to just move out because it's red. Your whole intestine is red. This, in the secretory type of diarrhea, there's actually a process, a physiological process where water is being dumped out of the body. Okay. So you lose water so fast and you can go into shock. And once you go into shock, it can become quite complicated, even if you go to the hospital.
Okay. You spoke about people maybe having this in the middle of the night.
Yes.
By morning, they're in shock.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not possible to get to the hospital, at least not in time, late in the night. Can they do anything to stop this or reduce it until they do get to the hospital in the middle of the night?
Between the 80s and the 90s, WHO gave us what we call a miracle. It was based on a lot of research, and it was a very simple intervention, and it's called oral rehydration fluid. And they've worked on it, they've improved it, and it's cheap, it's available. Now, if you don't have oral rehydration fluid, you can make it at home. Because in diarrhea, you not only lose water, you lose electrolytes. And if you lose electrolytes, that can kill you too.
Okay.
So you are not supposed to replace only water. You should replace water and salt. That is the most important. And you replace glucose.
So now, if you look at the screen now,
yes,
I got this picture and it shows
it's lovely.
6 spoons of sugar.
Very good picture, yes.
And one of salt. Okay, half level teaspoon of salt.
Yes.
I saw another one with 8 spoons of sugar. Now, which is the real measurement?
The recommended one by WHO is 6 level That's level means flat.
Okay.
Teaspoons of sugar and half level of salt, and you mix it with 1 liter of water. And you must make sure that that water is boiled, because there's no point giving contaminated water again. So boil the water and prepare it. You shake it very well so that the solute you're putting in will mix well, and you give it. Roughly, the idea is that there's almost like a rough calculation on how much you should give. For the mild diarrhea, you can give 50 mils per kilo, if you roughly know how much. So it's like a 1-year-old child weighs 10 kilos, so 50 mils. So half a liter you give that child within 4 hours.
No, could you go over that again?
Yes.
What per kilo?
50 mils per kilo.
Per kilo.
Yes. And with
so 500 mils for a 10-kilogram child?
Yes, for a 1-year-old child, you take 500 mils. But you give this over 4 hours. Because when a child comes with diarrhea, when a child is having the diarrheal episode, it happens quite a few times. Then the person says, okay, something's going wrong. So the first thing is replacement. I must replace what is going, because it's left my body. So you do use that formula. When it's moderately severe, you take 100 mils per kilo, and you replace that in 4 hours. After that, with each loose motion you now pass, you must replace it. Otherwise, you'll go back to that state again. Okay. So you've replaced the initial one, so you maintain it.
This replacement, does it eventually help to stop the diarrhea, or is just a replacement?
It's just a replacement.
So you still have to attack whatever is the underlying cause.
A lot of times diarrhea is self-limiting. When you should be worried, when you might need some additional intervention, medical intervention, is when you have a diarrhea with a high fever. Okay. You must go to the doctor.
Is that what they call dysentery?
No, because that diarrhea might actually be a manifestation of, although dysentery does give you high fever, but the word dysentery means you have blood and a lot of times mucus in your stool. Okay. So there are some particular bugs that do that, like Shigella causes dysentery. Amoebiasis causes, some form of dysentery, because you see blood and you see mucus. And these two conditions are quite common here, and they can present with a very high fever. So you need to go to the doctor. There are other conditions, like if you have a toxemia or sepsis. What you call sepsis is a bad bug that has gone into your body, gone into your blood, and is pervading all your blood.
And that one would cause vomiting.
And that can cause vomiting.
So you're very losing water from two ends.
Yes. So yes, you're in sepsis. A person who has sepsis can present as a diarrheal illness. That's why I don't believe, if you have any of these extra things I'm saying, going on further, if you have pain, if you have bloating of your abdomen, you must go to the doctor. You mustn't just say, oh, this is a simple diarrhea, because many people have made that mistake, particularly with their children. And by the time they come to the doctor, the child is in severe shock and has damage of multiple organs.
So no excuses. Once a child has diarrhea, it's an emergency.
It's an emergency, yes. I think you need to go to your primary care center, either the GP or the government primary health care center, and let the medical people say, okay, go on with your ORS and come back and see me. They will measure the temperature. They will assess if this is a very sick child or sick adult that needs additional investigations. You can have malaria, and malaria can present as diarrhea, because malaria is a toxemia. It causes sepsis, goes into all your body and can damage all your organs. So I think it is safe. If I had a child that has diarrhea, by the time we get on to number 4, number 5, loose stool seeping through the nappy, I will rush off to a hospital and let them make the judgments. But in the process of going, I would quickly prepare some ORS, some oral rehydration fluid, because the salt plus the water, the salt and the sugar, particularly the sugar, aids absorption of the fluid. That's why we just don't give ordinary water. It does aid. The solute in it aids the absorption. It's called facilitated diffusion, and it aids the absorption of the water.
Okay, we'll just pause there and take a quick break.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back really soon. Stay with us.